Today, we're going to have four fellows with us to talk about their stories, and also it's going to be geared a bit towards small firms, as we are the Small Firm Exchange. But in general, we'll have questions for anyone who needs them. We're going to start today with a Mentimeter, which you can scan the QR code so that we can get to know who exactly we're talking to and what your goals are for the talk, and then we'll get into the presentation and questions. So first question: How many of you have been practicing for more than 10 years? And Kate, can you put the QR code in the chat for those people who? Oh, there you go. Thank you. And so if you're just joining, you can click the link in the chat to join the Mentimeter. Okay, so most of you have been practicing for more than 10 years. That's exciting. So a lot of you are eligible. So the next question we have is, how many people are in your firm? And an interesting thing is that most firms in the AIA are actually small firms. I believe it's about 75%. And I think that comprises about 30% of the AIA's total population. So great. So most are 1 to 9 people. That's interesting. Great. And where are you located? You could just type in state or city, whatever you feel comfortable with. Right. So really cross the whole country. That's really wonderful. And how many of you have a good sense of what fellowship is? I think this is a big one. I think a lot of people don't know, and some people who would be interested don't pursue it, and some people who are interested don't feel like they have enough of a sense of it. So I can tell you for myself, I just submitted my application, and it took me easily 1.5 years before I had a good sense of what it was and why it was worth pursuing. And so okay. How many of you are interested in pursuing fellowship? Understanding that this is our state rep call, and so those are a lot of yeses. Okay, I like someday. Someday is a good one. Right. 2 more years. I like that. You're going to need that planning. So okay. How many of you have submitted for fellowship in the past? I can tell you for myself, I just submitted for the second time. Both times were amazing learning experiences. So if nothing else, it's a process that I think to help you grow professionally, just putting together the submission. Okay, that was it. That's the last one, Kathleen. Great. Well, thank you all very much. Uh, Kate, if you could share your presentation and we can get into this. Great. So today we're going to be talking about Demystifying Fellowship, elevating SFX members. So today we have a wonderful panel with us. We have Kate Schwensen. She's the Chancellor of the College of Fellows with us today and is a Director Emeritus at Clemson University. We have Greg Ibanez, former regional rep of the College of Fellows, and he's also principal at Ibanez Shaw Architecture in Fort Worth. Janet Bloomberg, who's the former chair of the Small Firm Exchange, and she's also on the fellowship committee for Washington, D.C., and is a principal at Cube Architecture. And we have Alicia Belton. She's a principal at Urban Design Perspectives in Minneapolis. So a good cross section of the country and really great experience. Next slide.
Mm-hmm.
So we in our Mentimeter we met you a bit on who you are. So it seems like many of you are interested in pursuing fellowship, and most of you haven't done it before. So hopefully this will help clear up some of your questions and maybe put you on a course to pursuing fellowship. AI Fellowship is one of the highest honors awarded by the American Institute of Architects, with fewer than 3% of its members achieving this distinction. And fellowship recognizes architects who have made significant lasting contributions to the profession and society. And fellowship candidates must have been an architect for 10 years, cumulative years at the date of their submission, at least. And many small firm practitioners, and why we're here today, many small firm practitioners are deeply engaged in practice, leadership and advocacy, mentorship, yet a path to fellowship may seem out of reach to them, either for just not having the help to put it together, or just the amount of time that it might take away from practice. So we recognize that, and that's a challenge. And I think everybody here today who's speaking, has been a small firm practitioner or is a small firm practitioner. And our goal is to inspire and equip small firm practitioners with the knowledge, tools, and support required to confidently pursue their fellowship. And this is a rough agenda we're going to be doing: introduction, building blocks, telling some stories, your support network, getting started, and we're going to have questions at the end. As we go, if you have questions, if you could just drop them in the chat, and I will make sure we get to them at the end. Building blocks.
Thanks, Josh. So thanks to the Small Firm Exchange for providing this seminar for its members. I'm Kate Schwensen. I'm the current Chancellor of the AI's College of Fellows. And we certainly would love to have more small firm practitioners be elevated to fellowship. So, thanks also for the Mentimeter. That was really interesting information. So I'll provide a brief sort of introduction to fellowship. So we'll talk about some of the fundamentals, the impact that you need to show in applying for fellowship, especially the ripple effect. We'll talk a little bit about the object of nomination and sponsors, and the sponsor letter and summary page. So I'll be providing the framework, and Josh and I will be back and forth sharing moderator responsibilities, but mostly we want to provide some stories from Greg, and Janet, and Alicia. We think you can learn as much from those stories as you can learn from anything that I might say. So know that in order to be successful in applying for fellowship and being elevated, you have to document the ripple effect that you have had through your work on the profession or society. How have you made a difference? And this is challenging for many architects to, they can talk about it to their clients, and they can talk about the work of their firm and how they've succeeded and all the work. But when it comes down to just personally, wow, how have I made a difference and advanced the profession? So we'll cover some of that today. And in order to do that, the applying for fellowship requires you to identify one of 6 objects of nomination. And these objects of nomination sort of focus your argument about why you deserve elevation. So those 6 objects are these. Object 1 is often called the design object, getting elevated based on design excellence, how you have promoted the aesthetic, scientific, and practical efficiency of the profession. Then you would choose a sub-object of design, urban design and planning, or preservation. So you can see the statistics there from 2025. There were 52 candidates in this object, 22 were elevated. So 27% of the total elevated fellows in 2025 were elevated under Object 1. Object 2 is often called the practice object, to advance the science and art of planning and building by advancing the standards of practice. So the sub-objects here are practice management, practice technical advancement. You can see that 45% of those elevated in 25 were candidates in this object. And this is the object in which that every year has the most candidates elevated. Object 3, to lead the building industry and the profession of architecture. So these are sub-objects are leading the institute or leading a related organization. It's a smaller pool of candidates, and it's a smaller number of the total percentage elevated, but it's a fairly clear object for those who apply here. Object 4, to ensure the advancement of the living standards of people through their improved environment. So this is what we might call alternative careers or non-traditional practice, public service, government, industry organizations. Again, much smaller pool, and consequently a smaller percentage of those elevated. Object 5, to make the profession of ever-increasing service to society from outside the profession. So this really is alternative careers. Volunteer work with organizations not directly connected with the built environment. Interestingly, this is 9% of the total elevated. So there were 28 candidates in 25, and over a third of those were elevated. Finally, object 6 is really the education and research object. So educators, researchers, writers look to this object for elevation. So the first thing we're going to ask our volunteers, our panelists, to talk about is when did they start thinking about fellowship, how they chose their object, and how they knew they were ready to apply for fellowship. So here you can see the 3 of them with their medals, 2 of them newly placed medals, and 1 of them recently wearing her medal. So Alicia, do you want to start talking about this?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. I thought about this because actually somebody recommended me. I'm based in Minnesota, and we have a committee of fellows that meets with prospective candidates on a monthly basis through like the fellowship season. It usually kicks off in the spring and lasts until right before the submission is due. And I attended a meeting, and that was a couple years before I submitted. And, I went, kind of in this kind of venue, like, what is it about? Why should I do this? And quite frankly, I felt a little intimidated by the people that were in the room because I didn't think I had done enough, that I haven't done enough syndrome, right? So I inquired as to who thought I should attend, and I talked to her about it. And she was like, well, hey, you should think about this. And if you are going to do it, start documenting your experiences. So that's what I took away from that initial meeting before I submitted. So that was 2 years prior. I was elevated in 2022. So, kept getting the inquiries. Hey, are you coming to the meeting? Are you going to come here? What's going on? And I said, okay, finally, I'm going to do it. So I made the commitment to do it. And before I actually spent the time involved in preparing the application, I talked to some mentors. I talked to some other fellows in Minnesota and just said, why should I do this? Help me understand. And that was a really helpful kind of deep discussion and kind of self-reflection. And so then I said, okay, I'm going to do this. And I am, I own a small firm. I have a family. And so my time was limited. So I said, I'm going to do this one time. And if I don't get it, I'm not going to pursue it again. So basically, I spent like spring until the deadline in the fall and just worked on it weekly, every week. And it was really eye-opening for me. It really helped me to define my why. Like, why is the work that I do important? I talked to clients, had never done that before. And quite honestly, it brought me to tears sometimes because I did not know the impact that I was having on the clients that I served. And being in a small firm, you do everything. Today I was tech support because my tech isn't working, so I'm on the phone and on my laptop. But it was really it was a really good exercise for me because it also helped me focus my practice and helped me to really understand, like, why do I choose the kinds of projects and clients that I work with, very specifically. Object 5, I've had a very untraditional path. And so looking at all the objects, that was the most in alignment with how I had practiced. I've worked in small firms, worked for corporations, do a lot of volunteer and service work within AIA as well as in public service with the county and with the state. And so that was the most in line with what my career experience had been. So again, for me, it was really good. I was so grateful that I had the opportunity to spend the time reflecting and talking to people. And then I had a great team that supported me. Small firm again. I ended up having a good friend of mine who's a writer who had been involved in another kind of jury process for another industry that, sat with me. And so I had people around me that I could like bounce stuff off of. And I would say the last person that I bounced the application on after I finished it was my husband, because I just wanted to keep him out of it. So, and after he read it, he was like, you know what, this is who you are. So, so that's a little bit about my why and how I got started and why I chose the Object 5.
And actually, Alicia's submission is actually one of the submissions that are on the AIA, the fellowship website. And it's actually one of the submissions that I used this past year as a sort of a guidepost for putting my submission together. So I do think her submission is wonderful and definitely worth looking at if you're considering putting together a submission.
That's great, Josh. And there are other, and thanks for bringing up the examples on the website. There are lots of really great examples there in every category. And thank you, Alicia. Greg, do you want to talk about how you got to your why and when you started and how you knew you were ready and how you picked your object? Yes,
I will. Thanks, Kate. I'm not sure I know if I'm ready or not still, but so I was elevated in 2012. I knew over the years people in firms I worked in that had been elevated. I graduated from architecture school in 1980, so I'm pre-digital world. I remember one of my colleagues at first firm I worked for, and looking at his submittal, which back in the day was actually a portfolio with 8x10 glossy photographs. All the letters were originals. Everything was typed. But like Alicia, I had a couple of people I respected who suggested I look into it. I was a member of AIA Fort Worth. We're a small chapter. I had previously, for 17 years, been a member of AIA Dallas, which is a mega chapter.